Hello and welcome to our Healthy Veteran Affairs event. The purpose of our discussion today is to further educate and inform the public on the importance of using available technology for indoor air and surfaces within our veteran facilities and overall community. With our team of panelists, we'll look to elaborate on items such as the need for real-time mitigation against COVID-19 and future viruses and bacteria. We'll discuss opportunities in addressing indoor spaces for veteran affairs and government facilities. And finally, how the company Healthe Inc. is at the forefront in utilizing far UVC 222 lighting systems as a solution to these issues. My name is Bashon Mann on behalf of Provision Advisors, serving as your host for today's panel discussion. And I'm also a veteran. So I'm quite interested in what these experts have to say to us today. Joining us on our panel are three esteemed guests: Mr. Fred Maxik, CSO of Healthe Inc., Dr. Wes Naylor, Senior Advisor of Healthe Inc. and retired Navy captain, and also Major General Hammer Hartsell, who is the Executive Director of the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. We're excited to have you joining us as we dive into the benefits of UVC light technology in the fight against airborne pathogens and viruses such as COVID-19. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Fred, I'd like to begin with you. Please explain to our viewers how this technology works, the benefits, and how it appears to be game-changing as opposed to other light cleaning products.
So we have known for decades that UVC light is very good at cleaning an environment. The problem with UVC light is it's always been associated with mutagenic effects. It affects our skin, it affects our eyes in an adverse way, so we couldn't use it where people are present. What's novel about this new technology, which is 222 nanometer far UV light and far UVC light, is that it is a light source that is devastating to most pathogens we come across, but can be used in areas where people are present. It does not penetrate our skin. It does not penetrate our eyes. There are regulatory bodies and thresholds that recognize the safety of this in the environment. So it's a fairly new technology. It's been around now for about 20 years. Versus others, but it's very effective and very well studied.
Fred, you mentioned a nanometer. For those, a layperson at home, can you maybe just explain a little bit more in lay terms what a nanometer means?
Yeah, so we're looking at what was essentially just a very, very short wavelength of light. So it's a measure of the wavelength of it, and we measure that in nanometers when it comes to UV light. So the idea is that it's just indicating this is a shorter form of a UVC light.
So when we, obviously with the past year that we've had with COVID-19, can you just tell us a little bit about how this light technology, because that is what's on the top of the mind for many Americans, how this light technology affects a virus like COVID-19?
Certainly. So there are actually two ways it impacts a virus like COVID-19, and it's been studied and it's been documented by multiple university studies at this point. And that is, it has two pathways. It will both directly disrupt the genetic material of the virus. It actually can get in and tear apart some bonds, specifically thymine bonds, and reconnect them in a way that makes that virus incapable of replicating. And the other way is it actually interacts with proteins within the virus, also leaving it incapable of replicating. So those are sort of the two modalities by which 222 nanometer light can disrupt a virus and render it incapable of replicating and therefore incapable of harming us.
General, over to you. The Florida Veterans Affairs has installed a Healthe product in one of its veteran care facilities and has plans to add additional products to sites across the state. Tell us, why did you choose Healthe and what benefits are you seeing?
For the past year, we've been fighting battles against COVID, like all the other nursing homes across our nation. The great news is currently we're winning the war against COVID. And we've always sought ways to enhance the safety of our staff, of our residents, of our visitors. And we're constantly evaluating anything we can to fill any potential gaps that we may have in our current methods of infection control or fighting viruses or harmful pathogens. And realizing that there's always a challenge in controlling pathogens that may be brought into our homes by an individual or by materials that come from the outside of our home into our home, the idea of a full body virus pathogen disinfection system was very promising and very interesting to me and to all of my staff. We see this as a way to stop pathogens from getting into our building, into our facilities, and it also helps our staff and our visitors by preventing them from potentially taking any infections back out of the home and into their local community or to their personal homes. So we see this as adding a significant measure of protection to our already robust set of protocols, protective protocols and standards. We also understand that the standard cleaning methods are only temporary, and the ability to provide a constant and pervasive method of virus pathogen cleansing and cleaning would be very beneficial to us. So that's why we had a great interest in Healthe. The added ability to provide a method that can protect against airborne pathogens, in addition to the traditional ventilation and infection control protocols, allows us to provide extraordinary attention to the health and well-being of any person that lives in, that works in, or that visits any of our state veteran nursing homes.
You made a lot of great points in that comment. There are other leaders like yourself across the state of Florida, other VA facilities in other states across our nation. What would you say right now to other leaders like yourself that are looking into this right now based on the year that we've just had and just based on the health and welfare of veterans, families, and the healthcare professionals that are in these facilities caring for them? What advice would you offer them?
Sure, the same advice that they would give back to me, I'm sure. We have a responsibility and accountability for the safety and the effectiveness of what we're doing for our veterans in our state veterans nursing homes. And that's the population that I can speak to. But I would encourage them to do what we did, which is look at any and all products, protocols, measures, standards that can improve your position, that can help you continue to win the war against harmful pathogens and viruses. We just happened in the past year to be fighting COVID, but there will be others potentially that come along. So do your background search, understand the science, do your research on the science, call around, ask other people that are potentially using whatever that system or protocol or product is, and ask them what they think. So basically, it's do all the background checking that you can, because it's a huge decision, a big decision to bring something in that's going to help the safety and effectiveness of infection control in a medical facility, as nursing homes, assisted living facilities, skilled nursing facilities are.
Dr. Naylor, I'm going to switch gears on you a little bit here. On behalf of the Healthe team, you've been working with other industry partners to help get this technology into federal buildings, on ships, and airplanes. Can you tell us just what more work needs to be done, and why should we keep moving in that direction right now?
Well, Bashon, I think everyone recognizes that whether it's in retirement facilities, assisted living facilities, commercial office buildings, or travel conveyances, airplanes, trains, coming out of this pandemic, there's going to be a new expectation for a level of cleanliness for people to be comfortable to go back into those spaces. And unlike a vaccine, which is attacking one specific pathogen at one point in time, we know that there will always be another pathogen coming, whether it's the seasonal flu, whether it's Ebola, whether it's a variant of COVID-19. What we need as a society is to leverage technology in a way that gives us ongoing and long-lasting protection. It's really building up, what we would call a resiliency, an ability to not have to relearn the lessons we learned in this pandemic, where we shut the economy down. That is just not a repeatable action. We have technologies like 220 nanometers, 222 nanometer far UVC that can be placed into all of these environments and render them a cleaner, safer place for humans to be. And I think that's not only an expectation, but that is good public health management for us as a society going forward.
Doctor, do you see or have you seen challenges or resistance to this technology with the industry partners that you've been speaking with? Are they open to listen? Do you find that they're sitting down with an open mind?
Well, Bashon, anytime you bring in a new technology and you bring it to large bureaucracies, whether those are government bureaucracies or healthcare bureaucracies, there's some initial resistance, and that's for good purpose. I mean, people are responsible for what they're exposing a workforce and what they're exposing their clients to. So doing due diligence is important. as Fred Maxik said, obviously this is well studied. We know that there are regulatory agencies around us. We know that the regulations sometimes take time to catch up with the science. Starting next year, the regulatory agencies are altering the high end on exposure limits for 222, taking into account all the safety studies that have come up, that really exponentially raises the amount of exposure that is recommended by regulation. So all the healthy products that we use in the normal settings comply with all of the existing standards. And I think it removes any reticence of someone who's unfamiliar with the technology, with the increase in the standards. But it's not only that. I think another piece of this that's very important for us to note is when we get into an environment like we have been, where one of the core reactions is to just throw bleach at something, that doesn't always work very well, because I was one of the people who found out that I've been using Clorox wipes incorrectly for my entire life. I would wipe a surface down, it was wet, and I'd wipe it and dry it. What I didn't realize I was doing was I was not allowing that chemical to fully activate. So I was creating an environment where the chemicals would allow mutations to the bugs. We've heard the term superbugs.
Right.
This is one of the other really great things about this technology is it does not allow for the replication of the viruses or the mutation of the viruses. So it's a technology we can use that provides a safer environment and specifically prevents the creation of new pathogens that would then be resistant.
A question for General Hammer. What has been the impact thus far that you've seen in your facilities where the UVC 222 has been installed? What are you seeing firsthand?
We're currently in various stages of installation across all 9 of our skilled nursing and domiciliary nursing facilities. So it's early to see results yet, but I'm excited about the added potential that for virus and pathogen eradication in our nursing homes that Healthe is bringing into our portfolio of what we're doing to keep our staff, our visitors, and our residents in our homes safe.
Fred, I guess this is a question really for you. What is the difference? Explain, break it down for me. The difference between HVAC and far UVC. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes. So there have been a lot of recommendations of recent about how you go about and increase your airflow with HVAC, increase the filtration with HVAC, open windows to bring in fresh air. And those are all good recommendations. But in the real world, in the real practice, when those get operationalized, we have issues. And the issues are sometimes that the HVAC system was not designed to clean air. It was meant to bring in cold air or warm air, depending on the season, and simply doesn't have the capacity to filter air. So you need to do a major overhaul, which many facilities simply cannot do today. In some cases, you wind up leaving dead zones in areas where air is not being exchanged at all, and you actually create higher concentrations of a pathogen in certain spaces by mistake. In some cases, we put up these plexi barriers that actually have stopped the airflow going through those spaces. And simply trying to filter through HVAC is no longer an adequate solution. So what happens with UVC is because it's just light, it can simply go through the entire environment. It can go through the air. It can go to the surfaces within it. And it doesn't face the same type of obstructions. And if it's placed intelligently, where people tend to gather, where people tend to enter, where people tend to exit, it can be utilized in a way that HVAC cannot, and used again as a layered approach within even folks who are working with the HVAC just simply cannot work with that area. The last piece, though, and I think this is the piece that we have to be concerned about, is the operational expense of those heavy air exchanges and using HVAC for filtering has very, very high electric costs associated with it. And I don't think people have gone through yet a full season of understanding what that's going to mean if they've moved in that direction. Whereas something where far UVC is simply the same electric cost as roughly a light bulb. So you'll have a lot greater electrical efficiency with the far UVC approach.
How does this technology benefit the airline community? What is it that they're going to be needing from Healthe as this moves forward?
So I think, obviously the airline travel industry has been one of the hardest hit industry sectors during this pandemic. For all intents and purposes, they came to an all stop. And like any other industry, you have to consider both the team members and the employees, and also your customers or passengers in the airline's case. And you have to provide appropriate levels of safety for both of them. The problem is, as we discovered with our technology partner Boeing, is that some of the ways that you would clean, say, the cockpit of an aircraft, are challenged. It's an electronics intensive environment. It's not a place you want to be spraying liquids around that can go behind buttons and either corrode or short out or damage very expensive equipment. So you have to come up with a way to protect the pilots who are in that space by cleaning it effectively and quickly, because in order for airlines to make money, the planes have to be in the air. Right. Pretty simple equation. Time flying passengers from point A to point B is how they get paid, not sitting on the ground. So Boeing had seen this problem with a number of its partner airlines. They had been doing work in this space for a period of time that paralleled our space. And Fred and I came together with them. They had been doing some prototype work. And we took their prototype work, we productionized it. We now have it out in production for the airlines and really for any place that needs to be cleaned quickly and effectively. It's called the Wand Pro is the specific product. It is not restricted just to clean cockpits. Any place that you would want to clean, any electronic intensive environment especially, it offers a really nuanced and effective solution. And it's the only product of its type that meets the original Boeing specifications for fluence or power. That's the amount of far UV that's being put out. And for being able to clean that type of environment on the time horizon. Typically airlines look at getting the cleaning cycle under a 15-minute turnaround time so they can get the plane back in the air. And we clear that by a long measure, properly employing this tool.
General, there are plenty of people that are under your command that are going to be listening to this and asking, okay, what are the other facilities where you are going to be utilizing Healthe technology moving forward? Can you talk about what are those other facilities where obviously veterans and healthcare workers, guests, family members are going to be able to benefit from this technology?
Sure, Bashon. Yeah, we're putting this product, Healthe, into all 9 of our facilities. We currently have 7 current facilities, and we're opening 2 new nursing homes, one in Orlando and one in Port St. Lucie. And so they will have it from the very get-go before the first resident is admitted into or comes into that home. I have to mention, I want to say, because I'm excited, you can probably tell, about Healthe and what it's going to help us do as far as infection control, as far as virus and pathogen eradication. Because like I said, we're always looking for ways to improve our position, and we're always looking for new tools and practices in all of our facilities. So for me, if I was going to put it in one, I would have to put it in all, because if it's protection, it's just responsible for me to put it in all of my facilities. And with COVID in decline, and as you said, nursing home life, and as an example, is getting somewhat back to normal. We want to fill all of our beds, all of our available spaces with our great Florida veterans who need nursing home type of care. And we're having a challenge with staffing and retention in our nursing homes. And I believe this is mostly due to the current economic climate, the perception of fear about working in a nursing home that was built over the past year. And we're diligently working to find qualified and willing personnel who want to join our amazing team of professionals who take great care of our veterans in our nursing homes. I mean, if I was going to work in a nursing home, I would want to work in the one that has the greatest team environment, but also the one that's the cleanest and healthiest and safest place to work. And as I understand it, we're some of the first, at least in the state, for state veterans nursing homes. They're bringing this product in to help us with our infection control and other pathogen and virus eradication. So I would come and work in one of my nursing homes, our nursing homes, because it has this product in it. And I'm gonna be safer and cleaner there than working in other nursing homes until they get it, and if others want to get it, that's great, but we have it. And so come work for us.
I mean, General, you make a great point. Would you be open to having, some other leaders in your position, some other members from across the VA come and actually see the benefits of what you're doing?
Absolutely. And we're open for visitation now. I would love to host anyone who would like to come and look at what we're doing across the board, in addition to Healthe, but everything that we're doing. We're winning the COVID war. We have not had COVID. We haven't had to deal with it with our residents in months, as far as a problem with someone getting sick from COVID. And that's a blessing for us.
Fred, I'd like to give you the last word here. Other CEOs, leaders across the VA and other entities like General Hammer here on this discussion, they're going to see this video and going to have some questions. What would you offer them in terms of satisfying that curiosity about how to get this into their facilities, how to get this into their businesses? What steps would they have to take? What would you offer?
I think the General's suggestions and actions are exactly where you want to be. I think do the research, ask other people, look at the data, and then make informed decisions. This is a nuanced type of thing. This is a layered approach. We're not recommending one technology over 20 other technologies. In effect, you have to have good practices. You have to have good protocols. You have to understand the technologies and how they're being deployed and used. But used effectively, we can help inoculate our infrastructure in a way that this pathogen and others will have a much harder time disrupting it. And that's what this is all about. It's about keeping people who are in our custody, keeping people who are in our responsibility safe when they want to enter their workplace, their living environment, their stay environment, their retail environment, whatever it is. And so the best knowledge we have today is study the facts, read the science, don't be fooled by hokey data on things, and understand that people are going to want to enter a space and feel like they are being taken care of. They want to know you've taken actions. And there are several that layer very nicely. And UVC light, UVC222, far UVC light, is one that is going to be ubiquitous over the years to come. It is one we can live with versus this one-time clean that we hope that stays clean after someone else comes in. This far UVC light is such that we could have it on a regular basis and keep our rooms, our space, continually being cleaned, both in terms of surfaces and air.
And anyone that's a decision maker, someone that's looking to reach out to Healthe for this, does not have to be restricted by regulations. Is that correct?
Well, there are a regulatory body of knowledge we have today, and yes, you should be cognizant of regulations, and we will be within them. The good news, as Dr. Naylor just mentioned a couple of moments ago, is that those regulatory thresholds and limits are advised to be greatly increased by the end of this year, because people are now recognizing how safe far UVC actually is in the environment. So please be cognizant of that. We make product to be cognizant of it. And as part of this layered approach, this is a great way to inoculate the infrastructure we have.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll now move to a live Q&A portion where we can take your questions. Those who are watching this today, please utilize the chat function and we will present them to our panelists. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining in on today's discussion of far UVC light technology. At this time, we'll open the floor to questions as Chief Scientific Officer, Mr. Fred Maxik, and Dr. Wes Naylor, both of Healthe Inc., shed more light on the effectiveness of this technology. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bash. How are you doing?
Doing outstanding. Thank you very much. So we want to start off with the first question here from Mr. John Schofield in Salt Lake City. FAR UVC 222 supplements traditional surface cleaning methods. What cleaning methods are the most effective in your opinion? And what about the Delta variant? Fred, I will throw that to you.
I'll start it, and I think maybe Dr. Naylor may want to complete it. But I'll speak to the variants first of COVID, and that is the modality that FAR UVC uses to disrupt or inactivate these types of pathogens would be just as effective on these variants as they are on the initial COVID-19 as it was discovered. The variants, as we've seen thus far, have no implication on how effective 222 is. Obviously, on surfaces, we're well aware that it works, although that is not the major vector for this particular pathogen. It is airborne, but it's also very, very effective in the air as well. Wes, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about surfaces, but
well, Fred, I think you're hitting on it. And what it really gets at the question itself is the difference between a point solution like a vaccine, which is targeted at a very specific pathogen, a specific point in time. The full research hasn't been done on additional variants and how the vaccine, what its efficacy will be against it. What we do know is that proper protocols and proper procedures using ubiquitous technologies like 222 nanometer, regardless of what variant it is, it will be effective against that, just because of the nature of how it inactivates the pathogen. Certainly, also, as we've stated repeatedly, is there's no silver bullet associated with this. This is a matter of taking the proper steps and layering them in a risk reduction methodology that improves the resiliency of the space and makes it a safer place for people to be in.
Excellent. Thank you both. Our next question is from, let's see here, we have Amy Daniel. Her question is, as a medical professional, how can we get this technology into hospitals? Great question.
I think that's probably a 3 or 4-fold process involved in that. But I think first is to recognize this technology in some form has already been in hospitals for decades. We've been cleaning surgical suites with UV light for at least the last 20, 30 years. So it's not unknown to hospitals, it's been there. The question is, can we now get it into the individual rooms, into the spaces, into the waiting rooms, into the exam rooms? And I think that's just a matter of time. As this gets more and more accepted, as people read the literature and see what the science is telling us, it's very clear that this is a device and a technology whose time has come to make a safer environment for us to live in.
Fred, let me elaborate just a little bit on that question. Saying this technology has been used in surgical suites and other places within our healthcare facilities. Does that then make it easier for companies like Healthe to transition into those spaces and spread FAR UVC light technology into these facilities?
So I think there's two pieces of that answer, Bashon. One is, I think it is easy to help us prove the effectiveness of this technology in activating and reducing pathogens. But what this technology really speaks to is the fact that it can be done in a way that's also safe for us to occupy that space. And it's that combination that creates the novelty. In the first case, I think that does help us move quickly into hospitals and the whole medical profession. In the second case, I think these new standards around safety, around occupational safety, that are allowing these much higher thresholds, or will allow these much higher thresholds, will help open the door to moving into more spaces within the medical community in general.
Bash, if I could just tack on to what Fred's saying here, as Fred notes, for decades, UV light has been used for sterilization. The challenge with that has been we've been using the traditional wavelengths of 254, 265, which do not have the property of 222, that they can't penetrate the epidural layer of the skin or the tear layer of the eye, making them, safe for people to be in the presence of, due to the physics of the properties of the wavelength. How they've been used in the past is very much the same way bleach is used in these environments. You'll empty a surgical suite, you'd bring in a UV robot or a UV lamp of some sort, you'd evacuate the space, you would turn on the lamp for a set period of time, based upon how much dosage of UV was necessary to kill the pathogens you were concerned with. Then you would shut it down. People would come back into the space. And the second they're back in the space, it can be reinfected. That is the real major difference between the application of 222, which is ongoing while people are in the space, as opposed to how UV has traditionally been used in the past. It really gets to that idea that Fred was talking about, and certainly we're seeing at a federal level, how do we build institutional resiliency? How do we get to a place where we never have to shut down the economy and hospitals and transportation conveyances in the way we did this time? And that requires technologies and layers of technology, as we've talked about before, that can be used while people are occupying the space. That's the real game changer in this.
Yes, Dr. Naylor, you bring up a great point there as we look back on the last 15, 16 months of how not just the United States, but globally, that approach to just evolving and moving forward amidst a pandemic. Let's move to our next question here. All right, this is from Chris in Palm Coast. He asks, other than healthcare facilities and schools, where does this technology need to be? And quite frankly, why? Fred, I'll start with you.
Well, I think I said before, I believe this technology is heading towards a ubiquitous standard around the world. For better or worse, the world now is advised that a pandemic can shut down countries, economies, militaries, and everything else involved with it. And I am fearful as well as hopeful that this technology can get deployed as quickly as possible, because that resilience that Wes has been talking about needs to be in our offices, in our shopping, in our restaurants, in our military, but also in every public building we have access to. Because if we don't have things like this in place, and it doesn't need to be this could be a piece of something, but if we don't have this in place, then how do we react to the next pandemic? And I fear they're going to become more frequent, whether intentionally or not, in the future.
Wes, how about yourself? Do you want to elaborate on that question? The gentleman, Chris, he asked a great question. As we're moving into the summer months here, people are trying to ascertain what they do with their children, perhaps, and going to camps, and then with the approach towards going back to school.
As Fred points out, and I certainly agree, it's a point that he and I came together on very early. I think technology partners like Boeing and others have seen that going forward, the need to have this as a ubiquitous technology, an affordable, ubiquitous technology that is continuing to provide a cleaner environment is going to be an expectation, and frankly is something that did not get born just out of the COVID pandemic. This was looking back at other things such as Ebola outbreaks and what that did to the airline industry. Started looking at that, and there just needs to be a capability based on what's available to us. Again, the idea that this is limited to one environment really doesn't hold water, because in order for us to be able to live as we want to live and interact as we want to interact as human beings, we need to be able to move fluidly throughout a variety of environments. The interesting thing about it, though, is the vectors that we need to attack with these technologies, whether it's a Navy ship, which was my background, or an airplane, or a commercial office building, or an arena. It's the same three vectors we have to attack. We have to look at the surfaces. We have to come up with an effective solution there, because if everyone remembers, when we first started looking at COVID from a national level, the belief was it was mostly spread via surface, that somehow you would pick up a droplet, that somebody sneezed, went on a surface. We were saying 7, 10, 12, 20 days as we were developing the science on this, and then if you wiped your eyes. So that surface vector has to be protected. Secondly, the air vector, as we came to learn through study and science across this, is probably closer to exactly the opposite of what we first thought. 70% plus was being spread through the air vector. So how do we effectively attack that? And then finally, the third vector is, whether it's a ship or a commercial office building or anything else, there are going to be people and things that have to move in and out of that space. So if we can attack those three vectors, we significantly reduce the pathogen loading in those places, which by definition lowers the chance of exposure of people who are in the space. So it's not a question of which spaces you want it in, it's which spaces does it make scientific and economic sense for them to be in. Because of course we can't put this in every space in the world at this point in time, given the price point of what technology is. Right. Will there come a time when I think we can do that? Absolutely, because of the investments that are being made. As Fred said, this will be a ubiquitous technology, but every business, every school has to make trade-off decisions based on return on their investment and what the risk is. We're hopefully providing the tools to help them make that balance.
Dr. Naylor, I know we have a host of people that are watching this webinar right now around the globe, and what I really hope is that someone is from the cruise liners to the airlines, as people seek to get back out and travel and sort of just live life. I hope they're listening to what you and Mr. Maxik are saying about just how vulnerable those places can be and what this technology can do. Here, we'll go to the next question. It pops up. I appreciate the patience of folks. Here we go. So this is from Kelsey Hicks. The question is to Fred specifically: is UVC 222 better than installing HVAC solutions, or should they be used together?
So that's a complex answer to that. Okay. And it's complex because you don't know much about what the HVAC was designed to do when it was first put in. There's also a question of what is an operating cost to truly make it effective, if it can be effective in that situation. I mean, if you're doing to look to increase air exchanges in areas of extreme temperature, and you've got to reheat or recool that air, it may not actually be a practical solution. So I believe they work hand in hand. But if I had to choose one today, and I had an environment, I would lean towards far UVC as being a first choice. It can prove to be effective in areas of odd geometry. You don't have to guess where ductwork might be in the ceiling as to whether or not you've got your effluent in the right position where people have people gathering. And it can really work on hotspots quite precisely. So you could take this and put this over areas where people are gathering within a space, whether that be at a reception desk, at a coffee center, in exam rooms, in restrooms. There's just areas that this can work very, very quickly and very, very effectively. And you can actually create a metric around it that says this is equivalent to X amount of air exchanges, which will give you an idea of what that dilution would be in terms of the inactivation that the far UVC is capable of delivering. I think with the thresholds of these standards going up in the future, far UVC will even jump a scale higher than that and become even more effective. But if you have the ability, use both. And if it makes sense, use both. But if I had to choose one or the other, I think I would choose far UVC at this point.
Excellent, thank you. Wes,
I was going to say, if I could,
Sure.
Certainly one of the original use cases that I was looking at was on Navy ships. For those who are unfamiliar with the process of building building a ship or an aircraft or anything else for the federal government or the Department of Defense, it is a very long, labor-intensive, and expensive venture involving many detailed layers of engineering. So one of the initial considerations when we were looking at this was, what would the cycle time and cost of doing an engineering change proposal to the HVAC system on a Navy ship be? And it becomes almost impossibly expensive at that point in time. And it's not necessarily going to accomplish the end you need. So what we started to look at is, how can we use existing technologies or emerging technologies to target those hotspots where we really thought the risk would go up? And again, it's all a risk management equation. Part of this is understanding the environment you're in, gathering as much data as is possible so that you're making smart choices about where you apply these technologies for maximum effectiveness. So it's truly not an either or type of case. It's every environment is unique. How do we address the needs of each unique environment? And
hopefully we have the right tools that we can put in combination to put in place, as we keep talking about, that layered defense as cost effective and provides the efficacy that the owner of that space is looking for.
Excellent, thank you. Gentlemen, my producer is telling me we have time for about 2 more questions. As we see the next one pop up here. Okay, Wes, I believe this one is specifically for you. What solutions did the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs implement within their communities to protect the residents and staff?
Great question. And again, it went around a needs assessment. It was pretty simple. We were discovering at the time, and certainly the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs was heeding the CDC guidance on this, that the air vector is what we were attacking. So one of the products that was used is something that's referred to as a Healthe Air. Fred was making reference to it. They were strategically placed inside the facilities in areas that would be maximally effective to reduce pathogen loading in space. Our team at Healthe got very deeply involved with the Department of Veterans Affairs, take a look at the actual blueprints of the facilities, where the traffic was, where the concentration areas were, and put them there. The other portion of this that needed to be attacked, both from a staff standpoint and a facility and resident standpoint, was, it seems like a million years ago, but it truly was just yesterday, that we shut down the facilities for people to come in and out. And in senior care assisted living, the emotional impact of that is devastating. We essentially were locking people away from their family members for extended periods of time. And we also had healthcare workers who were coming in and out of that facility. And there was natural concern about, am I going to be bringing something home with me? Am I bringing something into the facility in the morning when I come into work? Neither of which they wanted to be a part of. So each of the facilities also installed something that's referred to as the Healthe Entry. Looks very much like a metal detector screening type device that you would see at an airport that provides the ability to unload pathogens on the people's exteriors and their belongings as they're coming in and out of a space. So it was that combination of hitting those 2 vectors, which the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs thought was the right combination, and we were able to craft a solution around that.
Excellent. It's my hope that anyone that's listening, specifically from the VA, takes General Hartsell up on his offer, since visitation is now back and open, that they come down and look at those facilities and see what you all have done and how effective it can be. We'll move on to the next question here as it comes up. Okay, this is from Megan. She's asking, Fred, what is next for this technology? Can you share where your research and development is going, how you plan on combating the future pandemic-like viruses? What's around the corner?
Yes, so what's next is the path toward ubiquity. I mean, in a much larger scale here. But we're going to look at where the main pain points are, and we're going to pursue those aggressively. So any place where we've got sort of tight gathering areas, I mean, elevators are one of the ones that we have a great deal of work going on right now. But any area where we think is going to be a pain point, where people want to get back together and creates constrictions or constraints on how we can reutilize or utilize again the spaces we've gotten used to. I think there's a lot of reason to look at things like locker rooms in gyms, coffee areas, or countertops or counters in diners, where people tend to be in fairly tight proximity and share utensils or share pieces of other things that may be on tables or counters, and we can get those things clean in real time as people want to use them.
Outstanding. Gentlemen, I know we're very short on time, but I do want to thank you so very much for taking the time, taking the energy to come and educate us, educate the audience on just the effectiveness of FAR UVC 222 light technology, as we combat and try to mitigate airborne pathogens, viruses like coronavirus. So I appreciate the hard work that you're doing, taking time today to speak with the audience. Truly appreciate it. And for those of you who are listening in, do want to thank you for joining us. We will look to do more of these as we continue to move through this pandemic and learn how to eradicate coronavirus and other viruses, and learn to live safely in terms of dealing with viruses like this. For more information on what this light technology can do, what healthy leadership is creating for you, please visit healtheinc.com. That's healthy with an E, inc.com. And then follow them on their social media properties to get further updates. So, gentlemen, Fred Maxik, Dr. Wes Naylor, thank you so very much. Truly appreciate you. And we look forward to doing this again real soon.
Thanks, Bashon.
Thanks, Bashon.
Take care and have a great day, everyone. Be safe.